Okay, in this video we're going to look at the control group and the XML group. Controls are pretty interesting. This is where you can add things like buttons that a user can just click on to run a macro, or drop-down boxes and things like that, okay? So, for example, let's go to the Insert button here, and you'll see this drop-down. And it has two options here, Form Controls and ActiveX Controls. And you'll notice a lot of the same options are available in both of these. And the reason is they're fairly similar. The main difference is that Form Controls is kind of the older version. So this is where you put buttons and drop-downs and things like that into your forms. You can assign macros to these, and you can put these right into your Excel spreadsheets. ActiveX Controls are basically more dynamic and more customizable. And I'll create a couple of them just to give you an example. So first let's do a regular form control, and this is just a button. And it's immediately going to ask me if I want to assign a macro. For now I'm just going to say cancel. So for right now it's just a button. And if I click off of it and then go click on it, it doesn't do anything. All it does is select it, and I can modify it, I can stretch it or whatever. I can right click on it and I could edit the text and call it something else. In fact, let's do that. Let's call this smiley. Click off of it. Now it's renamed. Now let's do assign a macro to it. I'll right click on it and I'll say assign a macro, and let's put smiley and click OK. Probably should get this out of the way. We'll go ahead and click off it. Now you notice when I hover over it, there's a little finger. And if I click on it, it's going to actually run our macro. So this button is running our macro. Okay? Let's delete that real quick and try that again. Okay? Click on it, runs our macro. Just like that. Okay? Let's look at an ActiveX control. We'll do a button from there as well. And I'm not going to assign anything to this, but I'll just show you the difference between ActiveX and form controls. Okay, so this one's going to say command button. We could do the same thing with this. We can resize it. We can move it. But you'll notice a couple things that are different. First of all, when we created it, it didn't ask us to assign a macro to it. Second of all, if we right click on it, you'll see it doesn't have that option. There are a lot of things we can do with it, like we can go view the code. This is going to actually take us into the Visual Basic Editor. In fact, I'll click on that and I'll show you what that does. And you can see it actually has code written to create this command button. And we could put code in here. In fact, let's do that. We'll create a little program that makes this create a message box. We'll just say message box. And we'll say hello. Okay, close out of that. But you'll notice now if I click off of it and hover over it, it doesn't give me the same option like this one to run it. It still is like a move button. And the reason is because we're in design mode. So ActiveX controls will have design mode, and you can toggle this on or off. You see when I turn that off, now I have a little arrow button and I can click on it and run it. And see what it did? It popped up a message box that says hello. Okay, and that's because in our Visual Basic Editor, we added that little code in there so that our command button number 1, which is what that button is called, created that message box. Okay, and I can even do this and say design mode is turned off. Okay, and if I go back in, you'll notice if I turn on design mode again, I can't click on it. I can just go in, I can edit it, change it, stretch it, whatever. But if I take it off design mode, then it's clickable and it'll run, and it brings up our message box that says design mode is turned off. And that's how we were able to run it. Okay? So those are just some really simple examples of how to use some form controls and ActiveX controls to work with your macros and run some VBA code. Okay? And let's see, the next thing is properties. You'll notice properties is toggled off because I'm selected on this right now. But if I click over here, properties becomes available. If I go into design mode and I select this, I can go into this properties window. It's going to bring up all these different things which are properties of this specific control. And you can see we've got text and font color and all kinds of different things on here. Let's see if we can go in and change the button text. Let's just give it like a blue highlight. There you go. See, we just changed the button text. And there are all kinds of things that you can do in here to modify the way that this button behaves, okay, through your properties. Close out of that. View code is pretty straightforward. That's just going to bring us into the Visual Basic Editor. And it's going to show us the code behind that button. So that's properties and view code. Run dialog. I'm not going to go into that because it's kind of an older way to create forms. You can create a form dialog box and then you just click this button to run it. Actually, you know what? I can show you real quick. Why not? So you go right click and you say insert. It's going to give you all these different options of things that you can insert, types of sheets, charts, and whatnot. If you go to this MS Excel 5.0 dialog and select that and click OK, it's going to create this weird looking sheet, and it's got this dialog box here. You can see it's got some controls on it already, and you can modify it. You can add things to it. I could take a form control and add another button to it and whatnot. And then if you want to run it, you just click Run Dialog. And you can see it just created this dialog box with these buttons. So you click OK and it goes away. So we're going to delete that because, like I say, that's an older style or way of building forms. Okay, and then finally we've got XML. And like I say, I'm not going to go into this much, but I'm just going to kind of touch on it. But XML is basically just a way to move data back and forth and process data between databases. And you can do it using Excel. So you can import XML data files into Excel from other sources. You can export them out of Excel. This allows you just to manage the sources that you already have connected for your XML, and then you can map the properties of it. You can get expansion packs for your XML, and then this is just a refresh button. But we're not going to go too much deeper into XML. But that's the developer tab. You've got your code group where you can record macros and get into your Visual Basic Editor. You've got your add-ins where you can add in additional functionality to Excel. You've got your controls, which is where you can add buttons and drop downs and things either right into your Excel spreadsheets or into user forms and things like that. And then you've got your XML where you can connect to other databases using the XML. And that also does it for the entire ribbon and all the tabs on the ribbon. So at this point we have covered every single tab on the ribbon, and we've looked at almost every single little tool that you could possibly use on every tab in the ribbon. So by this point you have a very solid vocabulary. So now when somebody talks about Excel themes or colors or margins, or in your data tab when somebody talks about how to sort or filter or how to do data validation, you now have a reference for some base knowledge about all of these things that you can take forward. And obviously, it's impossible to learn everything that there is to know about Excel, but now you know what each of these tools are, and you can pick and choose which ones are going to be the most important for you and dive a little bit deeper. But the cool thing is, now you know more about all of these tools than your average Excel user ever will.